Hey everybody, tonight we're going to be talking about the Machinery 3-level slider by Wow Studio. That's all they're calling it. They're calling it the Machinery slider. It's 3 levels. The one I bought came from Tiger H EDC store and has their branding on the back. A little bit hard to see. It's not as deep an etch as it appeared to be in the advertisement photos, but that's okay. This is stainless steel, and it is sort of a lightly satin finish. I was going to say lightly blasted, perhaps, satin finish. It is really interesting because of the mechanism on the inside. Makes it very unusual. Very springy at times, clicky at other times. It has a few little quirks. We're going to be taking it apart, talking about it, comparing it to a few other things, the usual thing. So please stick around and join me for all the fun. So mine, like I said, came from Tiger H EDC on AliExpress. You can get these also from INS Works if you trust them more, but you are going to pay more. INS is significantly more expensive, no matter what it is. This means as far as the materials go in this product. They have stainless steel, titanium, zirconium, and PEI, or Altum. And generally speaking, stainless steel, the one I got was about 85, titanium was 85, zirconium 142, and PEI 85. INS Works again, much higher. I was hesitant to get this one because of the internal construction, and you can see off to the left here, to the right I mean, what the internal construction is, and we'll be looking at it a little bit closer. Now that's the PEI version, and you're only really seeing one half. The other half looks the same, but it's in a mirrored position. We have teeth, and you have a little spring, but it's not your usual size spring. I should say usual shape spring. And one of the things that made me hesitate on this was that does it come with any other springs for different strength options? Or is that it? Is that kind of spring going to be adjustable? So those were both mysteries, and I can at least solve a bit about it, solve some of that mystery for you here this evening. A little bit tongue-tied. We will compare it to a few things, weigh it, and then we'll get to the taking it apart part. Well, first let's go with what came in the box. Here's the box that it came in. Nice cardboard box. I will bring that into focus for you in case you want to scan that, see what it says. So you get your box, you get a Tiger H EDC pin. It's not actually a pin, it's a magnetized pin. Seems to be, what's that called? Glazed. Extra parts, most important thing. Unusually, they give you a middle sandwich piece, which I don't think is likely to wear out. But we'll talk about that in a minute. And then you get 2 extra springs. You see the unusual shape of the springs there. And then 4 extra screws. So that's wonderful for spare parts. I am a little bit perplexed to why they give you a new middle piece, though. Then we have a few stickers that look like they are intended for transparent surfaces. And one very fancy Velcro patch. I may even be holding it upside down. I'm not entirely sure. My apologies. That's it. Nothing else in the box. Well, before we take it apart and weigh it and everything, compare it to other things, let's just talk about it a little bit. One of the things that makes it unusual for sure is the spring system, but that leads to this little bit of movement. I'll put my hand underneath it in case it's not cleared with that black background. But there's a little bit of slop there, and that's just the design. And what that amounts to is when you slide it back to the home position, if you just line up all the ends like I'm doing right now, you didn't really close it the whole way. See, it's still open. In fact, it's open one click on each layer. So you get in the habit of closing it. When you close it, you go a little bit further than you're supposed to. You'll see that I've pushed it down a little bit past that point where they're all even. And then when you let go, everything lines up. and that just becomes habit. And honestly, it's added a little bit of an interest to it. There are 6 clicks on each section, so 12 clicks in either direction. And mine does have the special Tiger H insignia on the back. I'm not sure what that's supposed to read on the front. I'd like to know. I was expecting the etching to be a lot deeper than this, but it really doesn't bother me so much. I'm just happy that it's a nice satin finish and not a shiny finish. Another thing is, when you fully extend this slider, you still have a bit of a springiness here at the end, which also I think adds to it. I can still feel that forcefulness of pushing it out the whole way, but I can also sort of, I don't know, bounce a little bit. And as with just about every other mechanical slider that's 3 levels, when you have magnets on one side, when you have springs on one side and springs on the other side and they operate independently, one side's bound to be a little bit more dominant than the other side. So when you're opening and closing it, it may slide in the direction or in the order that you want it to, or it may sort of slide. I thought I'd have a good example for you there, like that, which some people like that USB thing, but for the most part, if it's not sliding the way I like it, I just flip it around in my hand until I can get to a point where I do like it. This does have an interesting design as far as the fact that the body completely wraps the interior core part, and I'll show you a few like that here in a second, and why that presents a few interesting challenges. But overall, I'm really enjoying this. I mean, I've been carrying it around for about 3-4 days now at work. It's got such a nice, subtle little pop. I don't typically do that. My usual flow thing is to always slide things all the way back and then all the way forward and then bring them back. I've just been doing this, and I couldn't be happier doing that. Really nice texture and feel. Interesting shape. It's nice all around. I've said nice too many times, haven't I? All right, let's move on. Okay, let's move on to the comparisons here, and we'll start with a few that I was just sort of referencing, where the body wraps the middle core part. And another good example of that here would be the piano slider by Dom EDC. The interior core is totally wrapped, so that means you're unable to grasp that middle part with any part of your hand and slow it down in the way that you might be able to do that with a 3-level slider where all 3 levels are exposed on the side, because then you can control the action by squeezing it. So again, that's why I always mention that, these 3-level sliders, one side is dominant more likely than the other, and you'll end up with it wanting to do that when you open and close it. So just flip it over if that bothers you. Same thing with this one. If I flip it over, that side less dominant. So those are 2. We'll compare them in size. Here's another one that wraps the body. This is the Gal Studio Rich Candy version, I believe, with a POM or nylon body. You could get this in yellow or orange. I got orange. Incidentally, I am getting this in stainless steel very shortly. Should be coming in the mail, hopefully, this following week. They just introduced them, and I don't know how many have been made, but I got my hands on one. But size-wise now, let's just start where we started, where we should have started maybe. Here we go with comparisons. Of course, this one's going to be exactly the same. Okay, now two that most of you probably seem to have would be the Top B by Metal Toys DZ. You know what else I didn't do? I should have compared these. I should have compared these in length while I have them out. Just do that quickly. Of course, that one's the same. It's the Top B, my Metal Toys DZ. And finally, the Mackie CP3. This one's a little bit longer. So there we go. Almost forgot. I had a few that were about the same size but larger. And a few of you have this one. Seemed to be pretty popular, inexpensive at the time, so good comparison piece. This is the Rebound, by who we don't know, but incidentally it is much taller, about the same thickness. And lastly, the Mackie CP2. Here's another 3-level slider that you can access the middle part too by squeezing it and control it. Anyhow, now we can move on. Let's get these guys out of the picture. Bring in the scale. There are no magnets in this, so we should be okay. Okay, stainless steel, about 62 grams. Titanium would be a little lighter. Zirconium, I'm not sure if it's lighter or heavier. Probably lighter. Now, let's look at the dimensions. It's a long one. What are we getting here? 50 millimeters. Width 25. Now the height in the middle is about 12, but the height on the ends sticks up a little bit, and it's about between 13 and 14. So if I could show that to you from the side, possibly maybe better on my hand, you'll see that it swoops up a little bit on either side, but it's flat the whole way across the middle. It's not concave. It just swoops up at the end there a little bit. So there we are. All right, next thing, take it apart. Okay, we're going to be using a Phillips 0, seem to fit the best. There are 2 screws on either side of either half. I'll only need to take one half of this apart to show you. Very small screws. Be careful not to lose them. Okay, now I can simply slide this piece off. It'll lift off, but you can, actually it won't lift off because there's lips around the edge right here that retain it on the side. So you can't lift it off, you have to slide it off. Sorry, this will only be about the 3rd or 4th time I've disassembled it. So there you go, there's the insides. And then underneath this little plate is the spring. And actually this whole thing lifts off right now. So the spring's sort of holding in there on its own force. In fact, if you look at it closely, you'll see that this plastic piece is actually bowing out a little bit because of the force of that spring. When it's all in place in here, see, it's even springy enough, it won't fall out. it's actually holding those walls together. But that's the assembly. And then the middle plate here just has a little indent, a place for you to put this spring. So it's the same on the opposite side. Now let's say this thing fell apart on you and you needed to put it all back together again. You got your spring here. You can just put the spring into this little pocket like that. Then take your piece that that makes up this half. Now there's an important thing here. You don't want to put it on the wrong way. It has to go on this way, and I'll show you the difference. Remember this plastic piece. It has to slide back and forth in a little track right here. And if you try, if I flip this over, and if you try to put that in, it'll fit, but it's not down in the track. It's not flush. So it needs to sit down. It needs to be able to sit down in that track flush. That's how you know which side you should have going down on this. So now go ahead and put this on. You may have to, you want to have the ridges lined up with the two little mountain peaks of your spring here. And you can sort of rest the spring on top of those two peaks. Sorry. And then just sort of take your finger and pull it down and just sort of flex this and let it pop down into place. And now it's on. Now it's on. Now you want to be careful here. You wouldn't want it to slide apart and have the spring go flying on you, but that is as simple as that. Once again, it's just put the spring in there like that. Make sure you have the correct part facing upward so that this lays in flush. Rest the mountainous portion of this on top of your springs. Hold it there with your finger and then just pull down and push, pull down, pull back and push down until this snaps over it. Now that's assembled. Now this piece goes on, and it only goes on one direction. Right now it's upside down. Do you see the mountain peaks here, the two mountain peaks? They don't match the two mountain peaks that you can see in here. I have to flip it over. Whoops. Now you should be able to see that they will line up with each other. And this will just rest right on top of the spring. You just have to line everything up. And then once it's on there, it should be flush. And now you're ready to screw the whole thing back together again. This, remember, cannot go down just straight down. You have to slide it in from the side. These two little parts have to engage the dovetail, which is here. So, very carefully get all that back together again. Now we can just slide some things out of the way until these empty screw holes line up with the metal part underneath. And we're ready to put the screws back in. Again, always turn in a counterclockwise motion until you hear that little snap. Now you know your threads are lined up. Now you can start to turn clockwise. And that way you won't risk stripping your threads or getting your threads misaligned. And once you do that, it's ruined. I would never buy a piece. If somebody said, oh yeah, hey, the screw's stripped in one of these, I messed it up one day, I'd say, well, I don't want to buy it then. I just see too many other people out there they don't know how to screw. And it's making me think I need to make a video on how to screw. That ought to get some, that ought to get the algorithm, right? How to Screw by Dan Bruner. I've done a lot of screwing, I'll tell you that. And not the kind we like. also been screwed. Okay, there we go. Everything's back together. Pretty simple. Unique and interesting feeling. Unique, interesting sound. Price is fantastic, $80 or so. Stainless steel. I am very happy with this. This is going to be in my top 5 for a good while, I think. Right off the bat, I'm having no issues. Let's talk quickly. I forgot to really show you those. We didn't miss anything. I could have showed you this while we had it disassembled, but this piece is exactly the same. Exactly the same as the other piece. It's Teflon. And the springs, however, the springs had me a little bit concerned, because these springs, it won't be doing me much good to show you on video, of course, but they're the exact same size and shape they appear to be, but they are much, much stronger. And when I tried to put them together, it really pushed that piece apart, where it actually sits inside of. And when I got it to work, it was so strong that I was convinced that eventually that it would probably damage the teeth that are in here. And so I'm not using these right now, and I didn't even want to demonstrate that for you. My theory is that if I really need these, if for some reason, for whatever reason, I lost one of these two, and I had to resort to using one of these, what I could do is maybe just try to bend it and flex it until it's soft enough to my liking, and maybe that'll work. And if I can't get it that way, I could always try just sort of, what's it called? It's sort of the opposite of heat treating, but you would heat this up, and it would remove, if it is heat treated, which I'm sure it is, probably spring steel, it would remove that heat treating, and it would become a lot softer. But then, of course, it would be more prone to bending. But that's the theory on that. Like I said, I don't know why they gave you an extra middle piece, but thank goodness you got extra springs and 4 screws. And like I said, the price is right. And I think it took only less than 14 days to get here, I think. Stuff from Ali's been taking about 10 to 14 days, if you're lucky, which is an improvement over just a year ago or so. I think that's about all I have to say about this one. So please, if you have any questions, you better put them in the comments before you need to call an ambulance. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. Bye.